All right, we are to the last lesson in Unit 6, Graphing Absolute Value Equations and Translations. Now, I know that this whole unit is really linear, and absolute value, you guys know from your function families that it makes a V, which is not linear, but technically it's two linear lines put together. So that's kind of how it kind of fits in here. But we're going to talk about translations. Translations are just fancy language for slides. So this is kind of some geometry thrown in as well. And it makes sense because we just did perpendicular and parallel, which is geometry stuff as well. So now we're going to talk about some slides. And we're going to talk about absolute value equations. So again, you know absolute value equations are your V's, okay? And so they are going to undergo a translation or a slide. A translation or a slide is a shift of a graph horizontally, vertically, or both, and the graph will remain congruent, only the position will change. So this V is not going to change in size. So it's going to, if it's a really high coefficient of your X term, your slope is really high and it's really steep, after the translation, it's going to remain exactly the same steepness, but just where it's located on the coordinate grid is going to change. So it's not going to change shape at all. It's not going to get steeper or less steep, just the position of where it's located, it will change. Now, you know me, I like a song. I like to remember things musically. That's just kind of my learning style. So for this whole lesson, I use this song. And of course, I made up the song. So it goes like this. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right. Flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right. Flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. And I use this constantly when I do these translations. So maybe you might like it and you might sing it to yourself and it might help you. So vertical translations. Vertical translations are just fancy for they're going to move up or down, and that's going to happen on the y-axis. So if you have something that's a vertical translation, now usually in class I make you discover what exactly happens, but it's going to look something like this. The first one is going to be like y equals the absolute value of x. So y equals the absolute value of x. If you were to graph the y equals the absolute value of x, I think I'm going to put it over here like this. This means your vertex is going to be at 0, 0. If you remember how we did vertex. Remember, vertex is the AB. Remember, it's y equals absolute value of x minus a plus b. So inside was a 0, outside was a 0. So the vertex would be 0, 0, and the slope would be 1 because it would be right here. So this would be up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1. So this would be your normal graph. Okay, so using what we did with function families and going from there, and of course I should have a straight edge, but I don't, sorry. Next, what if I had y equals absolute value of x plus 3? So now notice that on the outside, kind of like over here, I added a b, I added a plus 3. So if I did my vertex now, my vertex would be again 0 on the inside, and then the outside would be 3. So I'm going to actually graph this one in green. And so my vertex would be 0, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then again, my slope is 1. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1. Okay, so something like this, and I graph it. Like so. Okay, so that's this one in green. Now, let's do another one. Whoops. That was crazy. So y equals absolute value of x and then minus 5 on the outside. So if I were going to do my vertex here, my vertex would be 0 and negative 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5. Let's put this one, say, in orange, and then my slope would be up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, and it'd be here. So now if I go back to the song, outside, so notice that these numbers are outside. I guess this number's outside, this number's outside. Outside, it moves up or down. Notice it moved up on the x-axis or it moved down on the y-axis. It moved up when it was positive, so it moved up. It moved down when it was negative. Okay, so if I were to give you this example, y equals absolute value of x minus 1, could you tell me the shift? And could you tell me the vertex? And you should be able to. The vertex would be 0, -1. And what would this graph do? If it started here at the 0, what would it do? Outside, up or down, the shift would be down 1. So it moved down 1, and that's because of this -1. So if I had y equals absolute value of x plus 12, the shift and the vertex, the shift means on the outside, what did it do? It went up 12, and the vertex would be 0, 12. Okay, so outside, up or down. Okay, so outside, notice these are all outside, outside, outside. This one went down, this one went up. Okay, so now let's do horizontal translations. Horizontal translations move left or right, which means they're going to shift on the y-axis. So they're going to shift on the y-axis. So now let's look at this. So this would be, whoops, sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't in black. Okay, so y equals, let's start with the absolute value of x, and then let me draw it over here again like I did before. Okay, and let me show you what happens now. So this again would be, vertex would be 0, 0. And the slope is 1, so it's up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1, up 1, back 1. And you should remember that from the last time we did absolute values. So this is the original. Now, notice what's going to happen now. Jeez, I'm not very good at freehanding. Okay, so now watch this. Y equals absolute value of x plus 6. X plus 6. So notice it's inside the absolute value, so that means you're going to move left or right. But if you remember from this whole inside, and let's put those in pretty in a pink. So inside, if you remember, oh, it didn't even move to pink. Inside, if you remember, it was that -1. So whatever you had to do, you had to multiply it by a -1. So I had to multiply it by a -1 to get my vertex correct. So here, my vertex would be -6, 0. So now if you go back to the song, it says inside, it's going to move left or right. So inside, move left or right, but then it says flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. So I had a +6, so I had to flip it to a -6 because I had to account for this whole -a up here and timesing by a -1. So my vertex now would be -6, 0. So let's say I'm going to graph this one in blue this time. So -6, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then my slope is 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1, back 1, up 1 over 1, back 1, back 1, back 1. And notice what happened. Did my graph shift? It certainly did. It shifted to the left. Okay, what if I have y equals absolute value of x minus 4? Whoops, x minus 4. So now my vertex is, and remember, you got to times it by a -1, multiply by a -1. So -4 times -1 makes it a +4, 0. So now my vertex, and let's pick up the yellow, is at 4, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then my slope is 1. So back 1. And notice now it shifted right. So outside, up or down. Inside, when it's inside, it moves left or right. So if I have, say, y equals the absolute value of x plus 2, you could give me the vertex and you could give me the shift. So the vertex would be -2, 0. Got to multiply by a -1. Multiply by a -1. So -2, 0. And then the shift. Now, just be careful. +2 would mean it'd be going to the right, but you have to shift. And notice it was a negative. So which way are we going to go? We're going to go left 2. So be careful about that, left 2. So how about y equals absolute value of x minus 8. So again, give me the vertex and give me the shift. Okay, so multiply the vertex by a -1. So that makes this -1 times -8, which would be 8, 0. Now, negative normally goes left, but I've got a positive, so that means it's going to go right 8. So now, outside, up or down, inside, left or right, flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right, flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. And that's what we're doing. That is what we are doing. And I use that song constantly to help me out. So, what if I do something like this? I want you now to write an equation. Well, you know what? I'm going to come back to this. I have this a little soon. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can move it down for right now. But what if I did something like this? So what if I had this example? So kind of continuing on. And we'll put this down here. So what if I had this? Y equals absolute value of x minus 2 and then plus 3. Oh boy. Now I have an outside and I have an inside. So first, let's do my vertex. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right. So my vertex, remember, times this by a -1. So -2 times -1 makes it a 2. And then this is just the same. So my vertex would actually be at 2, 3. Okay. And if you think of the shift, so outside, it goes up or down. And you can list them both ways. Inside, left, or right. Flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. I usually always start with the up and down. So I know it's going to, from the normal, it's going to go up 3, because plus 3 means goes up 3. And then it's going to be a +2. So my shift is going 2. So 2 is to the right. So it's going to go right 2. So I have my vertex and my shift. It's going to be both up, right, and left, or up 3 and right 2. So what about this one? Y equals absolute value of x plus 7 minus 8. So I need to know my vertex and I need to know my shift. So my vertex, I'm going to times the inside by a -1. So that'd be -7, and then this would be the outside, which is -8. So now think about it. Outside, up or down. So this is outside. -8 would be down 8. Inside, left or right. But you got to times it by a negative. So negatives go to the left. So that means you're going to go left 7. So my shift is down 8, left 7. All right, so last but not least, and looks like I need to make this a little bit longer here. Now we're going to kind of do the opposite. We're going to write an equation for each translation. So they all start with this y equals, they all start with this y equals absolute value of x. And then they said, okay, well, here we go. Number one, we're going to go 8 units down. Okay, so outside, up or down. So this is down. So down, first of all, means it's negative. And next thing you know, it's outside. So you take the original equation, which would be here, y equals absolute value of x. There's nothing on the inside, and then outside it would be negative. So it would be negative 8. And I have my equation. Okay, so number 2, what about this? 3 units left. Okay, so left, that means outside, up or down, inside, left or right. Inside, we're going to go left or right. Now left, usually that this is left, so you're thinking here that's left. So this would usually be a negative 3. But you have to flip the sign of the inside number or times it by a negative 1. Then you'll get it right. So negative 3 times negative 1 makes it a positive 3. So now you're going to have y equals absolute value of x. And then on the inside, you're going to do plus 3. And of course, you could work backwards to make sure that works. So let's try another. Number 3. Let's see. 4 units right. Okay, so outside, up or down, inside, left or right, it's right. So this number is going to go inside. Now, right 4 units. So if you're thinking here, right would be this way. So that means it would normally be a positive 4. But I got to times it by a negative 1, which makes it a negative 4. So when I put it, y equals absolute value of x, and you're going to have minus 4. Now, you could always put that into your Desmo graphing calculator, doing an absolute value and seeing what it looks like. Okay? All right, well, let's take it up one more notch. What if I have this? Up 5 units and left 2 units. Ooh. I have 2 of them going on. So outside, up or down. So this is outside. And it has to go up 5. So that's positive 5. So if I start here. So y equals absolute value of x. I know I'm going to have something on the inside, so I'm just going to skip over that. And then I'm going to have a plus 5. Whoops. Uh-oh. Oh, okay, good. That was crazy. Sorry about that. So, totally erased what I had going on though. So let's start that back over again. So y equals absolute value of x. I'm going to have something on the inside, that's for this, and then up 5. So I know I'm going to have plus 5 at the end. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right. If I go left, that's this way. So usually I'm going to a negative 2. But I have to flip the sign of the inside number. So now it's going to be a positive 2. And then you get it right. So now I'm going to do positive, and so I'm going to put plus 2 on the inside. That's what I'm talking, people. That's what I'm talking. All right, last but not least, what if I have this? What if I have a y equals negative absolute value of x? What did that mean? When I had a negative absolute value of x, hopefully you're telling me that means the graph opens down. And you're exactly right. It means it's going this way. Okay, so now what if I say 6 units left and down 2 units? I want to point out, does this negative change anything with the numbers that you're doing there? And the answer is no. All that negative does is just transfers down to this, and you still do the same thing. So you just write that negative, just transfers down, that's it. just transfer it down. Here was a negative, just transfer it down, negative, and then you do everything else the same. So outside, up or down. So here's down, down 2, so that'd be -2. So that's gonna go outside, -2. And then inside, left or right. So left, that's left. So that's usually a -6, but I gotta times it by a -1 because flip the sign of the inside number. Then you'll get it right. So it'd be +6. Dun, da, da, da. So don't be fooled by that negative. Doesn't change your numbers at all. Just changes the way the graph opens up. And you just put a negative sign outside the absolute value signs. All right, outside, up or down, inside, left or right. Flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right. Use it, guys. It works. It works every single time. And I sing it in my head constantly. Outside, up or down, inside, left or right. Flip the sign of the inside number, then you'll get it right.